We are very proud to announce that the episode today will be sponsored by Bare Necessities. Bare Necessities work closely with EDMA systems to bring the best of both access control and time attendance software integrations.
EDMA, or Employee Data Management Application, is a unique software solution designed to simplify a number of business processes, including human resources, employee documentation, health and safety, job costing, employee time and attendance, payroll, and finance.
To view the full range of their services, please visit barenecessities.co.za.
That's BEHRNECESSITIES.co.za. Our first sponsor.
Yes. First of many, hopefully.
Yes.
I've been so lazy.
But I feel like this time of the year, people usually hit a slump. Or I feel like my sister always says she hates June and July because it feels like the same month.
That's actually a really good point.
Yeah. So I feel like, and August is her birthday, so she can't hate August. But I think June, July, also in South Africa, that's when winter hits. So, yeah, it's dark, it's cold, it's raining. Mm-hmm. It's not nice.
Oh, I was going to say, that sounds amazing. I love that. I hate summer. Can we just stick to this wonderful cold weather we had today? Very nice.
It's nice. I don't like the rain so much. I don't want it to rain as much as it did over the last 2 days. It was storming raining here.
Yeah.
They were like,
yeah, because when I went to the vet, the parking lot was freaking flooded. So that was great.
I do love the rain, and we need the rain, obviously.
Earlier, I was looking out my window, and I saw Lily went to go outside, and she was doing poopies and stuff, and I was like, oh, look, she's not, moving her leg, because she used to bend the one leg and put the other leg out, because she couldn't, bend it. But now she was, properly squatting with both legs. So I was like, oh, that's so nice. Yeah, she can poop normally. I look away, I look back, and she's got her face towards the poop, and I'm like, Lily. And she turns around, she's got the turd hanging in her mouth. So she runs in, and she's got, turd, stuck to her mouth. And I had to, clean it off, because Bass, can you just deal with this, please? I'm on a call. This morning, we woke up, she had pooped on the carpet. So, twice today, we had to deal with her poop. And Nick's puked in the lounge, earlier today. I was like, can you guys stop being toddlers, please?
Can you please regulate your bodily functions?
And why does it always have to happen when we're on calls?
I know.
When we're on meetings. God. This is Lord Omen.
James loves it. This is Lord Omen. Yes, it is. Oh, what are you talking about? Welcome to the shit show. James loves rubbing. I don't know if I've said this before, but he loves rubbing his face in the horse poop outside. I don't know why he does that. Every time we take him outside, I need to monitor him, because otherwise he goes straight for the horse poop and just shoves his face in it.
Have pets, they said. It's less work than humans, they said. I would say less expensive, but not really.
Oh, yeah, well, no, not always. Not if you have to go to the vet.
Yeah. Wow. It's midway through, almost the end of August now. So it's next month is the award ceremony, 30th of September. So it's right at the end of September. Okay. Cool. So we just have a whole month to think about it.
Just ruminate on it.
Yeah. Oh, also, you know that screenshot I showed you of Instagram showing the Amber Alerts? I saw that little boy that she found.
I also saw he was kidnapped at gunpoint.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Oh,
and I just also saw his family said that, mentally and physically he's doing okay. And then I also saw, I don't know how true this is. I mean, I saw it on, can't remember the source. I think it was on EWN News when they found him, or after he was reunited with his family. It seemed like he was at least well taken care of. Okay. And he told his family that he was happy that he missed 2 days of school.
Okay.
It's such a childlike thing to say, you know.
That's a relief in a way, because, you know, like, he's not entirely traumatized by it.
Yeah. I think it is still traumatic and you can't really feel the full weight of it right now as a child. I'm glad he's okay. So, disclaimer, the following stories contain graphic content and might not be suitable for everyone. The sources I use to find the information will be listed below, and everything I say is my own opinion unless it is stated as fact. And obviously I mean no disrespect towards anyone I speak about. This week I'm going to be covering the case of Thoriso Themane. It's a really sad case. All of the cases I cover are sad, you know. But it's, once again, just a really senseless murder.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think I'll get into it a little bit later. The case takes place in Limpopo, in Polokwane to be exact. Thoriso Themane was a 28-year-old man who grew up in a very close-knit family. I think he had 2 siblings. I'm not 100% sure, but I think it's 2 siblings. And he was still living with his parents. He spent a lot of time with his mom and his dad, and they seemed very, very close. He was a church-going man, and his father was also a pastor. Very church-orientated family. And his father recalled how Thoriso would polish his shoes for him every Sunday before going to church, and how he would prepare his juice and his medication for him as well. He knew all the medications that his dad had to take, and he would prepare it for him every morning. His father further went on to describe Thoriso as, quote, a social man. He liked his music. He was not a man of many friends, though, but all of his friends were connected to music. And because of his abilities in music, he was called by many churches, so he'd go and perform in many churches. He played the drums. He loved people and was also a very compassionate person. Quote, if he had something, he would share with others. If he had something to give to others, he would give. His father laughed a bit when he said that he and Thoriso's mother would reprimand him from time to time for giving too much until he himself had nothing. He was just that type of person. He would literally give you the shirt off his back.
Yeah.
That type of person. From all accounts, he sounded like a loving young man who had a bright future ahead of him. Thoriso's father spoke about the last time he saw his son. He said he saw his son on the 23rd of February 2019 at around 10 a.m. Thoriso's father was preparing to leave for a church leadership meeting. Like I said, he was a pastor. And Thoriso had been preparing to leave. He was going to church for band practice. He was busy getting his new speakers that his father had bought him, busy getting them packed up so that he could take it with him to test the sound at practice. So Thoriso wanted these speakers for quite a while, but none of them could really afford it. And his dad actually bought it for him on credit. He was on his credit card. He's like, let me make this guy very happy and buy these speakers for him. They were brand new.
Oh, that's so nice. Why do I feel like something sad's about to happen?
Because I'm telling the story.
True. It's just like something nice happens and you're like, oh.
I know.
When's the other shoe gonna drop?
So a fellow bandmate apparently said that after practice they were going to drop Thoriso at home. But when they got to a park nearby his home, he said, don't stress about it, just drop me here, I can walk the rest of the way home. It was literally like 1 kilometer away.
Yeah.
It was really close, so no stress. When Thoriso did not return home on Saturday, his parents grew concerned because he was not the type of person to stay away without letting them know. Like I said, he was very close with his family. They tried calling him again and again, but his phone was off, which was not like him, which obviously made them panic more. But they eventually went to bed thinking that they would find him asleep in his bed the following morning. Unfortunately, that would not be the case. The next morning, when they went to check in his room, Thoriso was nowhere to be found. Thoriso's father wanted to go to Thoriso's friends' houses to see if he wasn't there, but Thoriso's mother suggested that they go to church first. he is a 28-year-old man. Maybe his mom also thought, everything's fine. Maybe he had a late band practice, although he would be the type of person to let them know.
Yeah.
And so they went to church, making sure they kept the gate and front door to the house unlocked for when Thoriso would return home. Yeah. They really thought they would find him there when they returned home from church, but still no sign of him.
Yeah.
And that's when panic really struck. They decided to start searching for him. They called his friends and they told the family about how they dropped him off at the park close by, and then he walked home.
Yeah.
And so the family went to the police station to find out if that's what Thoriso's dad said, to find out if a missing persons report has been filed for him.
Oh.
And then said, but I think, I'm not sure, but I'm sure they wanted to go and file a missing persons report.
Yeah.
Nonetheless, I went to the police. They also, after that, went to the hospital to ask if there had been anyone admitted to the hospital in between the times Thoriso was last seen. And all of this comes from an interview. I can't remember. It's in the sources. I can't remember which news station had this interview with Thoriso's dad, but this is from his dad.
Okay.
His dad was explaining this. Okay, so they went to the hospital. There was one unknown patient submitted during that time, and he was in Ward C. So Thoriso's parents went to Ward C and described what their son looked like, and it seemed to the staff that it could be a match to the patient that came in. Thoriso's father said that at that moment their hearts could sigh, have a sigh of relief. They really felt, okay, we've found him. Yes, he's in hospital, but at least we found him. Moments later, a woman, I'm assuming it's a head nurse or maybe a doctor, came to them and asked them to step into a separate room with her. Thoriso's father said that is when both of their hearts started racing again, because he said they never call you into a room with good news, a separate room with good news. The senior staff asked how they were related to the patient, and of course they said that they were his parents. Condolences were given to the parents, and the staff explained that Thoriso was brought into hospital the evening before at around 7 p.m. The times are a little all over the place in this case. I'm just going on what Thoriso's dad said.
Okay.
But he had sadly passed away that Sunday morning. When they asked to see Thoriso, they were told that the forensic department was closed and that they should come back the next day, Monday morning. They went to the hospital on Monday morning and confirmed that it was indeed their son.
To go the whole night and you haven't even confirmed it is your child yet. That must be...
I was also thinking that.
Awful.
Yeah. Briefly talk about the injuries, but I don't go into any detail. Thoriso's father noted the bruising on his child's body, especially his chest, and he had a big wound on his head as well. So unfortunately, Thoriso was brutally attacked where he had been dropped off by his friends and bandmates in either Flora Park or Fora Park. Not too clear, it was reported both ways. Okay. Just 1 kilometer away from his house, like I said. He was later found close to a church and taken to hospital where we now know he passed on. As if this is not horrible enough, a video circulated online, trigger warning, showing how Thoriso was being attacked, and another video showed a bleeding Thoriso being carried away by his attackers. Initial investigations revealed that Thoriso was attacked by a group of mostly teenagers in the area. By the 26th of February 2019, police reported that one teenager had been arrested in connection to the murder, but the motive still remained unknown. On the 27th of February, it was reported that another video clip had been doing the rounds. I was a little bit confused about the videos, but this is kind of how I understood it. I'm not sure if this all happened in one video or if there were two videos. I think it happened in two videos separately, but the video shows a grade 9 Capricorn High School student appearing to admit his involvement in Thoriso's death. The boy can be heard saying that his father is quote-unquote untouchable. SAP shared a statement from the Office of Commissioner John Sitole condemning the behavior of those involved. Quote, the social media post reflected one of the young suspects claiming to be a son of a senior policeman, and the police could do nothing about what he had done. The same suspect is now among those behind bars, and he is the son of a retired SAPS warrant officer. Unquote. So I mentioned that some of the attack was also filmed, and in this video, you can hear one of the young boys ask, quote, do you feel happy that you have killed a person? Unquote. That's when the other one answered that his father is untouchable.
Okay.
It was this chilling proclamation that would eventually prove to be their undoing, with one of the classmates recognizing one of the voices and publicly confronting the alleged murderer during a school lunch break in the days after Thoriso was killed. Jeez. In the filmed exchange, the older pupil questions the other boy, who admits he had been part of the attack. This was a key clue for police, who then moved in and arrested the 6 pupils.
Jeez.
Eventually, 8 people, 6 minor children, and 2 adults were charged for Thoriso's murder. One of the children involved in the attack, a 16-year-old boy, turned state witness and testified against his accomplices. The National Prosecuting Authority's Malawi Nzangi said the witness told the court, quote, I also beat him with an open hand, and then the rest of the minor accused joined to assault him until he ran to the house, which belongs to the adult, the accused in the matter, the older men. We, the group of minor accused, follow the deceased and continued to beat him. Unquote. The group of teens had apparently been drinking, and when they saw Thoriso walking home through the park, they accused him of previously stealing one of their friends' caps or something, like as in a beef cap, as in a hat, or something. There was some sort of altercation. There were also mixed stories, and also I do think a lot of these boys probably talked a whole bunch of shit to try and justify what they did. Yeah. Because one of them said Thoriso bit him, and I'm like, don't talk cock.
Yeah.
You're talking absolute nonsense.
He probably bit you fighting for his life, which is fine.
No, he's like he bit them, or he bit this guy, and that's what led to the assault, which I call bullshit on.
Yeah. And I love how they always, but they were drinking. It's like, yes, okay, it does impair, but how much were you drinking that you become a murderer so willingly that you could brag about it afterwards?
Yeah, no.
So that's not alcohol, that's you being a piece of crap.
Yeah. So it was also said that Thoriso didn't utter a word during the attack, and he basically didn't stand a chance. Quote, the deceased was unable to defend himself. He never uttered a word. He was like a sheep being led to the slaughterhouse. He died a horrible and painful death. It was a slow and torturous death. The accused even had the audacity of recording the incident. The video went viral. Unquote. 4 of the 6 teenagers who assaulted Thoriso were found guilty in the Limpopo High Court in late 2021, while the other 2 were found guilty of common assault. The 2 adults who were accused of being a part of the mob involved in the killing, Chuene Maleka and Alfred Motabo, were found guilty of assault with intent to cause grievous bodily harm, and they were sentenced to 20,000 rand in fines or 5 years in prison. Kotatso Tefo, who was 18 at the time of sentencing, Roava Maralome Vincent Motomela, who was also 18. I'm really sorry for butchering these names, although these are the accused. So, Tsaimo Mjeni, 19. Lesetja Kalebo, who was 20. Ramo Kokopa, the other accused, who was 20 years old at the time of sentencing, have been sentenced to 10 years in prison for the murder of Thoriso Themane. But that's not even that long. 10 years, like kidding.
5 years and 10 years, like what is that?
Therefore, who's one of the accused that was sentenced to 10 years, he's 18, was 18 at the time of sentencing, is expected to spend 3 years of the sentence at a juvenile center, while Nyeni and Motemela will spend 2 years in juvenile prison, and Kamokokopa a year before they are transferred to a normal prison for the rest of their sentences. Tabang Mohibedi, 20 at the time of sentencing, and Adaho Mudua, 20 at the time of sentencing, who pleaded guilty, were sentenced to 3 years, wholly suspended for 5 years, provided they do not commit a similar offense in that time.
Really? I'm sorry, but if that was my kid and that's the sentence these people get.
One of the parents of the boy who filmed the crime, he was being, not targeted, but there were things circulating online and being sent to him or his mom or someone in his family that, they were going to kill him and stuff like that. She obviously feared for his life and wanted to open up a separate case for that, because she just said he got involved in the wrong group, and he was friends with brother of one of the older boys or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah. But I mean, look at all the serial killers' moms who are like, oh, but he's such a good boy. He's such a nice... Oh, he was just with the wrong... No, like, you still made a choice. Like, if you were a nice person, if you were a good person, you wouldn't make that choice. It's not like someone has a gun to your head, like, we're going to kill your whole family if you don't hurt this person. You know what I mean? Like...
Yeah, I mean, you can't blame others for your actions. You still have onus over your own life, and you can still make better choices.
I mean, they were children,
and I understand that children are super impressionable, and getting mixed up in the wrong crowd can lead you to do things that you wouldn't want to do and isn't a part of your values.
Yeah,
but this is a lot.
Yeah.
This is murder. I also understand that where they grow up, and unfortunately the environment that they were born into, that they didn't ask to be in, is a violent environment.
It's just unfortunate.
It's not justifying what they did, not at all. No. They're still 100% responsible for their actions and should be. Because obviously there were a lot of people who were community members who were really upset about this, and one of the community members said that if you are old enough to do the crime, you're old enough to do the time. And I do agree with that to a certain degree, And I understand that is what rehabilitation centers are supposed to be for, and but like we've said so many times, how much rehabilitation is actually being done in our prisons. And not only that, but what do they come back to? They go back into the same environment with the same temptations, the same, things going on. It's easy to get sucked up into something like that, especially young kids who don't have... And I'm not saying that they didn't have a good home life, but mom and dad are busy. Like I said, you're not living in a great neighborhood, perhaps.
I mean, that's how gangs is formed, right? That's how they get young kids into gangs, because it's just...
Exactly.
You're looking for that
place to belong.
Yeah. Those poor parents, so senseless. And those people who dropped them off, must feel so awful. Because, we had just insisted on driving him. It's... Not that it's their fault. I'm just saying, the guilt they must feel must be...
So during this time, it also came to light that this was not the first time one of these boys, back when they were boys at least, were involved in criminal activities, especially assault. One of the 4 teens convicted of murder had attacked and stabbed a witness at a party before. He recounted the event. Quote, "Before the party started, they asked me to stand at the door because other bouncers were by the gate. So he asked me, quote, please stand by the door and make sure no one comes, and we'll tell you when we're ready, unquote. So everything was set, and they're like, okay, fine, you can let people in, the party's about to start. Since I was going down the stairs, he stepped on my shoe, and they were pushing and kind of shoving. So when I looked at him, I was like, He was stepping on me, but I was speaking Tsipedi. Then, from there on, he looked at me and gave me an attitude. So as I wanted to approach him and talk to him, his friends stopped me and they told me, please leave him alone, but in Tsipedi. And I'm like, nah, I don't want to hit him. I just want to talk to him. Also, obviously, also in Tsipedi. So he said to his friends that, quote, leave him. I'm going to show him, unquote. And as I was going down the stairs, he jumped in front of me and took out a knife. And that's when I had to attack him. Because I was standing at the top of the stairs, it was kind of like a 3-step thingy. So I'm assuming he's speaking about the steps. There were 3 steps, and then this guy was standing there.
I thought the plan was a 3-step plan.
No. It was also, I think he was just, like when you recount a story, you can't always get to your words. So I'm thinking he's standing on the top of the stairs, and this guy is standing like 3 steps below. Yeah. And he was down there. So as soon as he jumped, he took out the knife. I jumped from where I was to try and kick the knife out of his hand, and that's when he stabbed me in my chest. Basically, they're friends and they created a gang. So it's that type of thing. They want to be notorious and they want to be well known. That's why they took a video of when they were busy beating the deceased, unquote. Yeah. When asked, okay, so this is the really heart-wrenching part, and I'll end off with this. When asked by a reporter from ENCA News what his last words would be to his son, Thoriso's father said, quote, I am sorry I brought you into a vicious world like this, and sorry about what happened to you, and we are hurt by what has happened to you. But we are pleased that you knew the Lord, and I'll find you there. Every time I walk past his room, I look at his bed and I get emotional. I think, is it true that he is not there? And I try and come to terms with it, unquote. Thoriso's father would like his son to be remembered as a peace-loving and musical man who would go out of his way to help those who were in need.
Oh,
yeah.
That's so sad.
So incredibly senseless. And even if it was over something as stupid as him taking a cap, which I highly doubt that he did, what the hell?
Yeah, it's a piece of material.
Yeah, because, trigger warning, I didn't really go into how they murdered him, but they beat him to death. And places reported that one of the guys had a tire iron and beat him with that, and they kicked him. And the video was apparently horrible. I haven't watched the video. I don't even know if it's still circulating. I would never watch the video because I don't think I would recover from watching something like that.
Yeah, no. One of them should have been like, stop. Like, what are you doing? Like, this is wrong.
Yeah.
Not one of them had any sort of conscience.
But that one boy thought that he was untouchable because his dad is a police officer. And I can't help but think, where did he hear that notion?
Yeah, of course.
Where did he learn that from? A friend, maybe not directly.
Yeah.
Or exactly. That made me raise an eyebrow. Why would you think that? Why would you think that you can literally get away with a crime and nothing's going to happen to you because your father's a police officer? Has that been the case before?
Yeah.
Are you the boy that was on in the party that stabbed the other guy and got away with that because your dad made it disappear? It wouldn't surprise me that much because we do have a very corrupt police service.
Yeah, I was going to say, you can bribe them.
For the most part.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not saying obviously not every single police officer, but for the most part. Exactly.
I was having such a nice day and then you ruined it.
You wanted to do this podcast with me. This has been the last episode of Law and Omen.
Everyone's like, yes, finally!
We're back. Better than ever.
Are we though?
Except Kristin, you nearly died from that cough.
I don't know. Every time I laugh, then my lungs are like, nope.
And you're not even a smoker.
Yeah, I'm not. I don't know. Maybe it's because I sleep next to the window, and the window's always open because of the cats.
Maybe.
And it's been cold, so maybe it's...
Yeah, maybe it's the aircon as well.
Yeah, could be.
If it's on.
Yeah, sometimes when it's cold, Bess has it on warm. Okie dokie. So this story is the Thornton Heath Haunting. This story occurs in the 1930s and the 1970s in England. In South Kensington, Nandor Fodor was in his office. He was a journalist of Jewish-Hungarian descent, and he had been chief ghost hunter at the International Institute for Psychical Research for the past 4 years. Which is like, dream job.
I thought you might say that.
What's your role? I'm chief ghost hunter.
Ghost hunter extraordinary.
Yeah. On Monday, the 21st of February, 1938, Nandor opened a letter he had received from an acquaintance, a clergyman from the East End, Reverend Francis Nicol. The Reverend wrote to Nandor to let him know about a haunting which had actually been featured in a report in the weekend's paper called the Sunday Pictorial. Reverend Francis said the following in his letter, quote, "I wonder whether you have seen it. Unfortunately, the actual address is not given." Unquote. What he was referring to was the happenings at the home of 34-year-old housewife Alma Fielding. She lived in the borough of Croydon with her husband, son, and a lodger. Alma had unfortunately suffered with kidney problems since she was a young girl, and as such she always had her supply of antibacterial medicines in case of infections, as well as sedatives so that she could sleep. On the 13th, Sunday, February 1938, Alma was out with friends in the neighborhood when she was stricken with severe pelvic pain. She hurried home and got herself to bed after taking a dose of both medicines. The weather was cold, with strong winds spreading rain, snow, and sleet across the area. She was, according to the source, laid up in bed for days. Around this time, she noticed a strange 6-digit handprint on the mirror that was placed over the fireplace in her bedroom. The next Friday night, at close to midnight, Alma and her husband Les were in bed, awakened by the sound of something shattering. She turned on the bedside lamp, and they saw shards of glass on the floor, and suddenly another glass flew by and shattered against the wall. They sat in stunned silence until Les told her to put the light out. Alma did so, and a stuffy wind went through the room, and their down duvet wafted up at them and covered their faces. So Les quickly told her to switch on the lamp, and Alma tried to put it on, but nothing happened. Les tried to put on the light, and nothing happened, like he leaned over her to try and put on her bedside lamp. So she called for help. Their 16-year-old son Donald came to see what was wrong, but as he opened their bedroom door, he quickly had to duck down to dodge something that came flying towards his head. It was a pot of face cream. And both the parents are in the bed, and he's opening the door, and something just comes flying at his face.
You forgot to moisturize!
Oh my word, then ghosts would be throwing me every day. George, their lodger, heard the commotion and carefully entered the room to check on the family, and he was subsequently hit by 2 coins, a penny and a shilling. George and Donald swiftly left the room, with Donald rushing downstairs to get matches. When he returned, he lit a match and used the flame light to guide himself to his mother's bedside lamp. Because obviously they were like, we can't put the light on, whatever. So the bulb was gone. Remember, they had just put the light on, and then Les had told her to put it off, and then they couldn't put it back on again. The bulb was out of the lamp, still warm, but was on a chair on the opposite end of the room. So after this, things calmed down in the home, and just before 1 a.m., all of them went back to sleep. So the next morning, Alma was feeling a bit better. She went to the kitchen to carry out her usual morning routine, but while she was busy working in the kitchen, an egg smashed and one of the saucers snapped. So that's all the details that the source gives. But she felt shaken enough because of what happened last night and what's happening now to get help. But she knew she couldn't call the police. So instead she got in touch with the Sunday Pictorial, since the newspaper was currently running a series on the supernatural and they had requested reader stories. So Alma got in touch with them and said, quote, "Come to my house. There are things going on here I cannot explain," unquote. The newspaper sent 2 reporters over to speak to Alma and get the story. As she opened the front door for the men, an egg flew down the passageway and landed close to the men's feet. So I think they hadn't even come in the house yet, or they had just stepped into the house. She led them to the kitchen, and a pink china dog, I think it was like a figure of the dog, but like that pink china, was probably on a shelf in the hallway, and it just fell off the shelf and onto the floor. Most dangerously, though, a sharp can opener went flying through the air at head height. And, no one was around to have thrown the objects that they could have seen anyway. I think the other three, the husband, the son, and the lodger, they were still in the house, but I think they were, upstairs or something. They weren't around. It was Alma and the two reporters. So, a bit later, the trio was sat in the front parlor of the home, having some tea. As Alma sat drinking her tea, her cup and saucer lifted out of her hands, and the saucer shattered in mid-air, cutting her thumb. So as they were busy bandaging her thumb and trying to stop the bleeding, they heard smashing in the kitchen. After checking, they found that it was a wine glass, which had somehow gotten out of a locked cabinet where the glasses were kept, and it had smashed on the floor in front of it. And again, an egg had cracked against the sideboard in the living room. I mean, why would there be eggs in the living room?
I was about to say, what's with all the eggs?
Yeah, I literally added a note here. At this point, I just hard boil all of the eggs in my house. We're never baking. We're not doing it. We just boiled eggs or nothing. The last thing that happened was a large piece of coal raised from the fireplace grate and launched near one of the reporters' heads. So clearly, whatever spirit is in this house is just throwing shit at people's heads. The reporters never witnessed Les, Don, or George doing any of these things while they were in the house. So the source said, the next part, but I don't know if it's directly after this or a later stage after the article was out, but it says that meanwhile a crowd had gathered in the street by the house, and within the throng of people the reporters identified a palm reader named Mr. Morrison, whom they invited in. He was a clairvoyant that told Alma that she, quote, was a very strong carrier of ectoplasm, end quote. He advised that the occurrences were warnings and that her son was in danger. So, I mean, this was the 1930s, I suppose, the spiritualism and all of that, so ectoplasm was, quite a popular thing.
Yeah, wasn't there a lady who, faked having ectoplasm coming out of her and stuff like that?
Yeah. Wow, that was a big... I don't know. I don't understand it. So the next morning, when the pictorial was out, it ran the headline, quote, "This is the most curious front page story we have ever printed," unquote. And it said the following, quote, "In an ordinary terrace in Thornton Heath, some malevolent ghostly force is working miracles. Poltergeist, that's what the scientists call it. The spiritualists, they say it's all caused by a mischievous earthbound spirit." End quotes. And the piece also featured a picture of the family and George. So this piece caught the attention of the aforementioned Nando Fodo. He knew he had to act quickly since the International Institute was only one of many psychical research institutions in London, so many other paranormal investigators would be trying to descend on the home, as well as the fact that poltergeist hauntings didn't tend to last for very long. So Fodor quickly wrote to the pictorial's new editor, a 24-year-old Hugh Cudlip, to ask if he could join in on the case, hoping that he would be sent the address. So to put this time period into context, this all happened when the then British Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain called an emergency cabinet meeting to discuss the fact that Adolf Hitler had around 80,000 troops at the Austrian border, ready to invade, and Italian dictator Benito Mussolini was also posing a threat. Basically, Britain was steeling themselves, bracing for war. The Sunday Pictorial had been publishing these stories, along with the write-ins they had of all the paranormal encounters the public had experienced, which seemingly was on the rise. I think they got 1,000 or more people's stories where they had paranormal experiences and stuff. So from a psychological standpoint, one can see the correlation between the anxiety, stress and fear and uncertainty of the nation and the uptick in odd manifestations. So while they could have been actual hauntings, the majority were likely projections of emotions that were felt by all, and sort of like an outward expression of the energy of the nation. Because, I mean, they also, one of Fodor's, not theories, but what he stood by was that, especially with poltergeists, little kids, especially like when they're preteen, when they're going through that very dramatic hormonal and emotional change, you know, you're switching from being a child to an adult, or women who go from non-menopausal to menopausal, like these huge changes, you can sort of subconsciously manifest these things in your reality. And that's what he thought that the poltergeist activity is.
So like a negative emotional state would kind of project.
Yeah, it's kind of like, you know, those teen witchy movies, like, or like even Matilda or whatever, where she gets like upset and things just happen around her, and like, you know, it's like that explosion of energy that comes from
like Harry
inside.
Potter.
Yeah. So that's kind of the theory about poltergeist, that it's not really an actual entity, that it's actually a projection from your emotions are so strong, and you're not dealing with it, you're not externalizing it in any way, and so it externalizes itself in a way that you can actually experience. Which, I don't know, it's interesting. It could be a spirit, but that was what Fodor kind of believed and his theory that he ran with. So, I mean, that's still, because that's a lot to happen. Like, a lot of things being thrown at people's heads, a lot of sort of angry outbursts, a lot of trying to cause harm. You know, I don't know what was going on with her at that time, so you don't know. So the second instance is the same town, and it was in the 1970s. So during this time, a woman named Mrs. Forbes lived in the house. Now, I'm not sure, the source was unclear if it's the exact same house or just in the same general area, but it's definitely in the same, that's in Thornton Heath. I just don't know if it's in the same house. Okay. So during this time, a woman named Mrs. Forbes lived there. She claimed that an apparition, which was sort of like a vampire, attacked and choked her regularly. She said it had left burn marks and also bite marks on her neck, some caused by something ripping her necklace off of her neck. She also said that a tiger had attacked her and left scratches on her arm. So I don't know what that is.
Ma'am, are you taking hallucinogens?
It was the 70s, maybe. So she was studied in a lab by Fodor, and during this time, dishes and other objects were thrown around, but not by her or anyone else. Those, I guess the scientists or whatever who were observing her, said it was most likely her manifesting the activity, or, quote, she used psi trickery, unquote.
Okay.
The facts on the story are a bit fuzzy, as one account is that it was a whole family that was affected by the poltergeist, not just one woman. It started one night when the husband went to the shower and his wife was on the couch drinking tea before she started on dinner. So she sat there relaxing, she had the radio on, she was flipping through a magazine, and then the radio turned off, and then the radio turned on. And she was like, what just happened? And like, okay, maybe it's electricity, maybe it was a surge, whatever. And then the radio turned off again. And then she looked with, like, out of her peripheral vision, she saw the switch and she saw the radio turn on again. And she's like, what? So she's like, starts calling for her husband, but he's in the shower upstairs. He's not hearing her. And she turned and she looked at it and she saw the switch on the radio, like, go on and off. And she was just like,
that is when I run out the door.
Yeah.
Out the front door.
And then it stopped playing music. It just went to static. And she heard, like, sort of voices coming through. Yeah, no.
Whoa.
Horrifying.
Like a spirit box. Like a
yes, like a spirit box.
DIY spirit box.
Yeah.
And by DIY, I mean DIG. Do it, ghost.
I am typing that so I can put that on a t-shirt.
It's just the Nike sign, but as a ghost.
So she was speaking to her husband about this afterwards, and she's like, I don't know what this was. It was so weird. And he's like, no, it's fine. And he was in the room with her looking at the radio, and an ornament went flying off the mantle and hit him in the head. Like, it hit him, I think, in the back of the head or something. So he was like, okay, that's weird. This is very strange. So about, I think 2 years later, it was in the Christmas of 1972, decorations around the room were being thrown around. The tree was shaken, and it was shaking so hard that ornaments were like falling off of the tree. Close to New Year's, the family heard footsteps in the house. The one night their son claimed that an old man dressed in old-fashioned clothing had stood at his bed and stared at him menacingly as he lay there, which is not great. So at this point, the mom's like, look, something's definitely happening, and now it's trying to scare our son. Like, we can't have this. So they called a priest, because they heard, a medium could make things worse. Like the priest said, a medium could make things worse. It's better to have a priest. He went around praying, doing the holy water thing and all of that. And it just made things worse. Like, having the priest there, I think activity started again, like straight away. So then the wife was just like, no, this has to stop. So they went to a medium, and the medium came to the house and got in touch with the spirits and said that the man was Mr. Chatterton, and he was the one that had been active up until then. But it wasn't just him. His wife was also there, and she was the one that was having him do all of the things he was doing, because this was their property. And the current family were invading their home. And the family's like, the dad's like, but this is our house. Like, they're dead. Like, this is our house. And the mediums, like, spoke to the spirits, and it's like, they know that they're dead. But dead or alive, this is their house, and you need to get out. Because, this woman was like, no, this is my house, and you need to leave.
We've called dibs.
Yeah, literally. The wife was walking up the stairs, and she heard walking behind her, and she looked down behind her, and she saw at the bottom of the stairs this ghost of this old woman with a really tight grey bun and, an old pinafore type dress, and like she had this scowl on her face, and she looked really angry. And the wife like blinked and closed, like cleared her eyes to try and like, am I seeing this? And the lady was still standing there, and then she looked up in front of her, looked back, and the ghost was gone. And she's like, okay, no, this woman is not gonna like leave us alone. They actually did investigate, and they saw that there was in fact a Chatterton family that lived in the house during the mid-18th century. So the family was like, okay, well, we can't stay here because they are not gonna let us rest. They are not ever gonna stop. It's either we live here and are constantly tormented, or we move out. And so the family ended up moving out. It's one of those things where the people who stayed in the house after that, like after the early 70s, they never had experiences. They, never said, oh, we've had this experience in the house. But then someone also raised a good point. These two stories are so obscure. Like, I hadn't even heard of this before today, before I randomly stumbled across this. So it's not like, the Enfield poltergeist or like all these other stories where it's so publicized. This was literally in a paper, but we've never heard about it. You know? So it's not like they were trying to do a cash grab or, anything like that. So it's very...
Maybe. Sorry.
No.
Maybe the ghosts just really hated those people's sense of decoration, and the new people who came in, they're like, oh no, better taste, we won't harm these people.
Yeah, you never know, it could be. Or like maybe they were like really strict with the way they raised their kids, and they didn't like the way this new family was raising their kid, and so they were like, you are too soft, or you're not religious or whatever, just like leave. So you never know. But it's so weird that there's the same guy investigated the same area, like a few years apart like that. Well, I say a few years, 1930s and 1970s.
Like, Pat's here. Hello.
So that's the Thornton Heath hauntings.
Sure.
Yeah.
That was a really good story. I don't think I've ever heard of it.
Yeah, I was just searching for poltergeists today, and I randomly saw this, and I was like, I've never heard of this.
Catch us again next week, Sunday. We post every Sunday.
Our website is lawnorman.com. You can email us at info@lawnorman.com.
We are on social media, on all the platforms that you can possibly think of.
And if you can think of some we're not on, tell us.
Yes. And yeah, remember to go and visit Bare Necessities.
Yes.
Thank you for being our first sponsor.
Whoop, whoop. So great. Thank you. Yeah. Thanks for listening. Drink water.
Love ya.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.